Hi everybody, come on in. We are going to watch this video together. And what I mean by that is, you see I'm wearing a little mic there on my shirt. Well, I have a new recording things and I put the wrong thing in the wrong hole, and so the sound never showed up for this whole video. So I will be narrating this video on the side, sitting here while I watch it with you. So if my lips don't match out with my talking, that is why. I'm sorry about that, but I had to show you this planting of these 3 orchids, so this is the only way I could do it. So here we go. I have Fell Ox Firebird here, and she came from Roehampton Orchids with 2 other orchids because Joanne sent a gift to them that I could go pick out 2 orchids. There's actually 3 orchids because Roehampton actually sent a gift orchid. So now a few of the flowers did fall off while we've been waiting to repot them, and I have the 2 in the vase and some that were crumpled, but it seems to have settled down, and I think it was just the shock of the moving. So I have it all ready to go, and I'm in the vase just behind me is where I'm going to put the orchid. But the reason I'm doing this is this orchid has been in glass for almost 2 years now. November 2022, I believe it was, that I put it in this glass vase from a plastic Tupperware. It was an older orchid I had that wasn't doing that well, and I put it in the Tupperware. It was just an old Tupperware container with holes drilled in it. And then I decided to try this. Now, when Jack drilled the hole in this vase, the first one of my glass vases, the drain hole was right in the bottom. And this is how we've done this 3. He's got other holes, actually lots of them, and we have a drain hole in the bottom to see if it makes any difference from the ones with more of a water well and the drain hole about 1 inch high above the vase. And so we've done it that way. Plus I am adding cork because the bark that used to be medium is gotten so small, it just sits too close together and no air can get through. And I think it's very important that air gets through. So that is the other reason that we've done this. So generally speaking, this orchid is showing all signs of 100% health. So let's get busy and have a look and see what we've got. I'm just explaining about the no water will sit. When on a watering day, it will go right through. So I can't just put a little bit of water on watering day. I have to get it pretty wet right through. And you can tell, that's the advantage. See, there's the drain hole in this one. And there's other drain holes further up. But the roots are all healthy and good. And the good thing about the glass, and one reason I'm sort of switching, is because I can see the roots. And my other pots dry out so fast, very, very fast. And the traffic cones are the healthiest ones because they're larger pots. And they're in the old bark still. And the bark is standing up well, so. Okay, these are the little glass pieces Jack cut off of this vase. So you can see where the holes are halfway, just above the bark, there's some. And there's more holes down below. plus there's one in the very bottom down there. So there's going to be good drainage and good airflow. That's what orchids want. They want to be watered when necessary, fertilized when necessary, and have air able to get into the roots too, because that's how they live in nature. So I did in the bottom put the cork because it's a big pot for the size of the plant. So the cork is just filling the bottom and adding so I don't plug up those holes that air can still get through. Look at the size. That was the size of the bottom. Jack drilled through the very bottom of that crystal vase. And yet some of them, see this thin one? Some of them were so thin where the glass was finer. They all almost wanted to break out. They were so thin. So he did a lot of work, and we appreciate Jack doing that in a rush for 3 orchids that were coming in a hurry. So I found this crystal vase, and that's the one I plan to use first. So here we are. We're going to take it out of here very carefully. There we go. And there's the tag, and that's Fowl, Ox, Firebird. And I just recycle these pots. I don't keep them. They're all in moss, and I don't use moss. It's never done well for me. And to each his own. You have to find. Every area is so much different. Where you live, how you grow in your home, whether you grow outside, what your humidity is, how much light your orchids are getting. All very different, and you have to find what works best for you. But the main growing important facts still say the same. They need moisture, they need humidity, they need air, they need light. So, and we only put them in a container so we can control them a little bit. And roots, they do like to grow out the pot and all over, and that is natural. It's not because they don't like the pot they're in, it's because that's what they do naturally in the forest. They hunt because they're hunting for something to hang on to so they can absorb more humidity from the air. So I'm just trying to get this moss out. It's fairly loose. It's not fluffy, but it's fairly loose, and certainly not like the ones you get in the grocery store in moss, and they're just compacted so hard and soaking wet. The water is staying in it, and it's like a sponge. This moss is damp, but it's not soaking wet. The roots are seeming to look pretty good. Yeah, I'm poking away in there slowly because I don't want to harm any roots. And I've got those rubber tweezers because they're really handy. I got them from Lisa, and they're really handy for not hurting things, nothing sharp and pointy. I have been using them on and off for even my cactus the other day. So I might just rinse this in a minute and just help some of the moss out. But look at those leaves. There's lots of leaves. They're all firm and healthy, and I want them to stay that way. I've found when I soak my bark for 3 days, at least 3 days, it's been soaking longer, with about a teaspoon of seaweed extract and a teaspoon of Kelly Magic. There is definitely less shock, because it doesn't matter when you change the medium even a little bit, any change in medium, your orchid's going to take a shock. The harder, the more definite change, going from one definite thing to another is even harder on them. So I will be leaving some moss in these. I don't, when I have a grocery store orchid, I go straight for the bark, but I am doing it slower with these, and as time goes by, I'll be picking out the moss when I feel they're adjusted. And I've done that with other Roehampton orchids, and it's worked just fine. So I'm just picking out some of the fine bark in there. There's lots of roots. I like that because I did read something where I forget what, hard, dry, required, or roots. Let me see. I can't find where it was. I did have some notes on they adjust better. The more roots, of course, the better the adjustment. That makes sense. They're nice and green. So here I'm just pulling out some that were dead, that were hanging in there. That one, and there's, I leave the inside core. I used to cut them off. I started leaving the core. It helps keep your orchid stable, and it never does any harm. So I leave that, and I'm just pulling off anything that is a little bit sad. So there. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh yeah, there's another little piece. So I'm slowly getting it nice and clean, and then I'll run it under the water for a minute and get the rest off. See, these roots are green. The ones that are green have been getting light. The ones that are not green were further in the pot and hid from most of the light. If you see some of my pots that are in the porcelain pots, of course they don't get the light, and they're more a browny color, but they're firm. So if you're new and you're, oh, what's good and what's not, what you want is firm roots. You don't want dry, real dry roots so that they're flaking right off, and you don't want soggy roots. You definitely don't want soggy roots. If you take your pot, and you should be checking often, there you can see the outside ones are green and the inside ones are more of a yellow color. But what you're doing is feeling to see if there's anything soggy. So I'm just washing that off now. And I'm not being too picky. I'm not picking every bit of moss out because I am putting moss back in the pot with the bark. So, and the top of this vase is actually a nice pot size. If you weren't looking at the bottom where the cork is, you'd say, oh, that's a nice pot size for this orchid. But it does have the bottom, but I say if the roots want to grow down into that, that's all the better. So look at all those roots. So we certainly can't complain about that. I didn't forget what I went for here. There's my mister going. So these orchids will be staying on the counter there with that mister going, and grow lights when I need them. It's kind of funny watching it and then having to remember what you were saying. So I'm trying to just go with it. And I'm sorry about this. But you can't put the moss back in the orchids and redo the video, so we decided this is how we'd do it. You'd see the actual video, but just me talking over it. There. I got some moss in my glasses. Just a minute, I said. Oh, I'm getting my bark probably. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm doing. So I have my bark soaking in this pot. It used to be a wine pot, and Jack put a handle on it, and they used to sit in. I got it at a sale somewhere, but I like it because it's stainless steel and it's sturdy. So now on the bottom, I'm just going to add some bark until I get it up to the area where the roots are actually starting to hang. So, and eventually this will fall down through the pieces of cork eventually. But I can always add more bark if I need it. Yeah, Carolyn's saying you want airflow and you don't want to plug those holes. They're important. And when you're in glass, you don't want any direct sun because that glass will heat up fast. So I've got all my orchids are out in the patio right now, but I have a shade cloth over the top of the glass roof. There, so that's just bark, of course, with the cork and a little bit of charcoal to keep things sweet in there. And I don't mind in the bottom if a little bit of green grows. It's nothing serious other than anytime I decide to check the pot. The roots will not be sticking to the glass, so when you check the pot, you won't have to worry about hurting them, how they stick to a porcelain pot. So I decided I needed a little bit more. Oh, she's going to put a little bit more. Yeah, that's good because up at the top where the roots are, you still want some airflow there. And that bark is so small, it really annoys me because I like the bark how it used to come. It's the same company, but that's how it is. Yeah, that's a lot of pot that there's no roots in. But I found my orchids in the traffic cones are in big pots. Therefore, they're not drying out like the small pots. But they've had big pots and they had a space for the roots to grow. And if you look at my traffic cones, they're almost 2 feet out of the holes and they're still growing down and they're happy. They're in the air, and when there's enough humidity, they like it. And the plants are very healthy and they have lots of leaves. So now I'm just going to sprinkle the bark around the edges. Now you can see that top part where the plant is going to be still quite snug in there, which is what you want. You want it to feel like someone's hugging it. There, so I put a bit of moss, which is what it's used to. So I'm just introducing this bark, and the bark will be actually better for than the moss for letting some air flow around those roots. And I am not probably ever switching from bark. I just have to adjust because they've made the bark so small. Some of the pieces are so small. I probably have more traffic cones. Some people say, well, why don't you have more traffic cones? They're big. And you have to have them on a stand to hold them because of their pointy nature. And they're just, you have to, in the winter I have to lift them into the shower, and they're a lot more work. I can't do them at the sink. And so I love them, and my oldest orchids are in them. But this is why this experiment, and I'm still calling it an experiment. Now, next year this time, I'll be telling you whether it's a failed one or not, because I've seen a lot of people do it on glass and a lot of people had failures. But there is a few people, and I've talked about them before, that are doing successfully well. So that's encouraging, but most of all, my one orchid that's doing well is doing good. They look nice. That's the other thing. The roots get air. They still get air, like as if I'm putting the same thing I would in a porcelain pot in this. There's still air circulation and there's still drainage. I do not have the water well, like I call it a water well because the holes were an inch or two above the bottom of the pot. And I tip it and I get the water out, but there's always a little bit. But I think it's just adding humidity, and I don't think it's causing a problem. So what I do there is I get all the bark around it, but then I find I don't want my leaves to be down in the bark. So I always just gently lift my orchid while I put a little bit more bark around it. And that's what I'm doing there. And I'm making sure it's snug. I want them to feel nice and cuddly. Another time I'll go back later and clean off all those leaves. Yeah, there's a few spaces where the bark wasn't falling down. I'm just filling a few of the larger air holes I see. So these 3 orchids are going to be staying in the kitchen for their first, they're not going out in the patio. I think they've had enough excitement. But I like the looks. I like a lot about it. So when I do an experiment, I'm just not giving up after a month or 2 because experiments don't work that way. Orchids grow slow, and they take time to adapt. Oh, there's Alphinia. Yes, I've had her a long time, but she's got 3 flowers, but only 2 leaves, and she's drying out way too fast in that pot. And the other little orchids, see, in the smaller vases, they're doing good. They've got roots coming. These are the ones I did last in the smaller vases. They got good green roots showing. They seem to be adapting quite nicely. And those were smaller glass vases. And it's got a flower. That's the one I got from Rosemary, sent me 3 on Mother's Day. So, and I put them right in those small vases. I have the 3 of them. Here's the other one. Is Carolyn going to show the name because wrong side. There we go. I did a video on that and it shows better in the video. But those are also from Roehampton. That one lost a few flowers, but now it's making some more. And they're doing fine, and I just wanted to show you that. But you can see the water. It's not showing up that well, but there is water sitting, keeping humidity in the bottom. So the top of those vases is drying out still fast, but the bottom's adding humidity to the whole container. So, and they still have their moss with them. And that Sherryana, I always have trouble with Sherryana. I have 2 now. 1 leaf is a little limp, I'm saying. Yeah. So we'll see how we do. But I'm impressed. So. And it is going to sit up there, but I'll need a dish under it. I think it's going to leak all over the counter. And I got that later. Just from the wet bark draining out, which is what the other one does. So now, these are the 2 glass vases that I got from Lisa. And we've drilled lots of holes in them. I have the same story with the bark, and we have a bottom drain hole on the very bottom edge. So no water will sit in there, maybe the teeniest bit. And here we are with our orchid. I think we have Young Lava, and she has a little spike coming. Can you see it in there? Yeah, it's right in there. That's a little spike. I'm excited to see that. So if it stays happy, we might get a nice flower coming. So if you just go by the circumference of the vase, it's not too big. They're tall, but hey, it's like that baseball movie. If you build it, they will come. If you have room, they will grow. They do in the traffic cones in the other pots. Yeah, she's just showing you that. So I get all those barks. I've been watching the thrift stores, $2 for a bag of corks. So that's a good thing. I have no idea what I was saying, so I'm kind of just going with it. So that I most especially could have put it up with no one talking and just me doing that, and I thought, oh dear. So this little guy, he's got a nice spike, and these orchids are all sort of beginner to intermediate level. This orchid is medium to large size by Roehampton, and the last one was extra large. Some good green roots there. Definitely all in moss. And no air holes in the pots. They have them in those plastic pots. No air holes. It's just everybody grows different now. And when you're in a greenhouse, in a controlled environment, they have it all down pat. Yeah, it's not compacted, but it is tight in the very center in there, where the plant started. See, I like kind of air to get through, so when we all get our orchids, we all do our own thing and adjust. Kind of like my diet. I got used to it. I had to adjust to my new eating plan, and now it's natural, so that's how it goes. And then, like, things weren't good. You had to make an adjustment. So my knees were aching, and I was overweight. I had health concerns. I had to make some adjustments. So same with the orchids. They have to make some adjustments for the new environment, and then they'll be happier and healthier. Don't look at the wrinkles. I got a big light on. The other thing I got going there, and it's, yeah, it should have been more on the orchids, but things you learn. I'm not very techy. I'm surprised I've been doing videos all this time, because I'm really not a computer professional. Jack has to help me. Poor guy. He has to help with everything. He says, oh no, another God's face. Yeah. Hold it up to the camera, Carolyn. So when I'm doing that, there's a little glass flip out thing that I often hold it in front and I forget that's not really where the camera is, so that's not good, Carolyn. See, there we go. Get it up there. There. That's better. Yeah, healthy roots. Just going to rinse it off a little bit and let you have a look. There underneath the fountain, you see the little Peloric one I'm doing next. It's very pretty. I've got the grow light on. It looks kind of pink, but it's actually white. And that's the light I bought with some of the money I got from Francis. There, we're going to get our bark in the vase. Yeah, testing. See? And then I'm making sure you can see me doing this. Too bad I didn't know I didn't have sound. Oh boy, did that whole video with no sound. I won't do that again, I hope. Hopefully this time I have sound. I'm not used to these things. You got a little speaker and Jack said I got sound. There's the size of the bark. Like some of them are very small. And large used to be really big, and then I just even couldn't get large. And it seems everything's getting more expensive and harder to get. There, see now the roots are just sitting on that bark, and I'll put in a bit of moss. Eventually I'll, over time, not right away, as it adjusts, as I see it's adjusting, I will pick out the moss. Boy, yeah, so we didn't drink all that wine. We do like a little glass of wine with our dinner once in a while, but not that much. If you've ever had an alcoholic in your family, then it makes you drink reasonably. Not Mom. Mom never drank. She's a teetotaler. Never ever smoked. Never ever drank. Even Dad made wines and all kinds of things. So she might take a sip, but she never drank. Tea, and she liked coffee for a while, and now she just has hot water most of the time. That's all she wants. It's hot water. Okay, Carolyn, get back to the orchid. Got our little tweezers, and we're just making sure the roots it's all getting right into the inside of the plant too, that it's just not the outside ones. And then, yeah, it's getting some moss. I'm probably, because it's so hot here, I'm gonna be starting watering twice a week. Now the main watering, where I go by my water schedule and I put in whatever fertilizer or black tea that I use, I'll still be doing that once a week. Now, and then in the middle of the week, I'll just be going around with my water jug and adding water to each one to hold it so it lasts for the week. And then the 1 week watering will be a good one, where I now put them all outside the patio and get 2 water jugs going, and I spend an hour or 2 just making sure they're all, yeah, those will get cleaned up. The leaves will get cleaned up nicely.